everyone, this is Marcy Lamberson and I am making a quick tutorial on mushrooms with faces on them because somebody said, hey, I'm having some problems, and I had suggested, hey, I think everybody ought to try making mushrooms with faces on them because it's a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do is make a quick little mushroom with a face on it, and we'll just see whether it's fun for you after I make it. So I have a 1/16 mandrel here, just because I tend to use them a lot. 3/32 would work just fine. And I have some ivory glass that is effitrate. I'm just going to heat it up and get a stem on. And then we're going to do a dark red effitrate cap on it. I like the contrast. So I'm putting on the ivory, and I'm just going to do a kind of a medium thick stem on it. You need enough room to be able to put a face on it, and a super skinny one's not going to give you much room. And if the object of the mushroom is to make a face on it, might as well give ourselves a fighting chance. So here we go. And you can see that I'm holding my rod perpendicular to my mandrel so that my glass goes on pretty smoothly. And I'm letting it cool a sec while I'm heating up a little bit more of my ivory. And keep going. Make the stem nice and big. Just a quick marver on my torch-mounted marver. I am using a miner here. I've used this miner for forever. I have a lot of other torches that I use some of the time, but this one's kind of my steadfast one. I added a little extra because it seems like mushrooms are usually kind of bumpy down towards the end of the stem. And I want to be sure I have enough for a face, room to put a face on, and I think we're going to be able to do that. So let's just add a quick top to it, because that way, if we add the top now, we have choices. We could make one and then add the top, but then you've got that much more time that you've got the heat that's going to be hitting the face, which can potentially melt it. And also, this way we know how far down the top of the mushroom droops. And if it's a little bit droopy, then we will need to make our face a little bit lower down on the stem, right? Because you really want it to be visible. And I'm heating up some of the red, and I'm just going to lay it down. It looks almost like a spacer bead shape at first. And we'll just heat it up and round it out a little bit. There we go. See, it looks like that. That's pretty easy. Now we're just going to round it and put a cap so it looks like it's shaped a little bit like an umbrella. So I'm cooling off the red a little bit. And I'm going to add it from the middle on down now. We'll see whether I need to add any more on top. And you can tell by the color on the red that the top part's cooler and it's hotter down below. I want it to be nice and hot where I'm adding the glass so that it melts together well. There's less marvering needed then. So we're going to heat up where we're adding the glass, and see how I'm adding it just on the edge rather thickly. The focus of this bead is going to be the face and not the cap like it usually is. So I'm not going to add a whole lot of details to it once it's done. I want the eyes to be going down to the face instead. Otherwise, I'd be adding details underneath the cap. We're going to add a little bit on top of the cap, but not a whole lot. So I'm just adding it to the edge. And in a minute, we'll look and see how it's doing, because I haven't looked at that yet. But you see how I'm just kind of adding some on? Let's heat up the stem a little bit. Get it nice and warm. You want the stem to be glowing when you hit it with a little bit of heat. Okay, so right now, see this funny angle that I'm heating it at? I can see the glass and what it's doing. pretty well that way. I'll just take my marver and give it a little run across there and even things out a little bit. And I'm going to lift it up a little bit because it's a little bit low. And I don't like how it's connected up here too well. I want to drip some of that glass down and thicken it up. It looks a little bit thin right where it's on the mandrel. I don't want any points. I want it to be a nice, good connection. So you saw how I heated it up and holding it upside down. That way the warm glass is headed in that direction and we'll fill it in. And so I'm not hitting it with any more heat right now. I'm letting that cool a little bit. There we go, that's better. We're going to add a little more red to the top. Keeping the stem warm and the cap, but not super warm. We don't want it melting into itself a whole lot. So I'm adding just along the rim, more glass. Every so often the stem gets heated up. See how thin it is, what I'm adding? Just along the edge to add width as it goes out. We're going to keep going a little bit more, but heat up the stem and then right along the edge. Kind of like making a disc almost, isn't it? Okay, that's a really big cap on this. I don't think this bead is going to be worn. Okay, this is my brass stump shaper. One of my favorite tools. You know what they say about brass. Brass will move your glass. If you want it to go somewhere, brass is a great way of moving it along where you want it to go. Okay, so we've got a red cap, and I like to have the cap, see how it's a little bit uneven along there? To me, that looks a little more natural, and I like that. Let's add a little bit of white for dots on the top, and we'll finish that off. I have just some, it's cased white, plain white would probably be fine. Just want a little bit of something on there, so little tiny dots, and you can leave them raised or melt them in, or you can do something else. I just like a little bit of something on there. Interest. And I don't like super big dots. I tend to like smaller ones for some reason. So those are melting in. I'm heating up the stem. And while I'm doing that, I'm also looking to see, is there an area that I think would make a better face place? I kind of like this one right here. So we might go with that. Let me heat up some glass. I'm going to put, oops, there we go. I'm going to put a little bit, a small gather of glass on for a face first, and it's going to widen it, and it's going to give me kind of like a place to add all the eyes and stuff. So this is the location. We want to be sure that the face will show well. I could flatten it a little bit also, that'd be another way, but let's just add a little bit of extra glass for this face. I'm doing kind of a rectangular shape. And we're gonna melt it so it's connected really well. And it's quite warm, so while it's cooling, we're going to keep the cap nice and warm. So when I want to have eyes on there, I need some sort of a pokey tool. There are all kinds of different ways of doing it. You can buy these tools like these that make different size holes. You can take a pair of pliers, see how that would make two good indentations there. You can use tweezers. You can use other kinds of pokey tools. I'm looking for some more of them to show you, but I'm not sure that I can grab them right away. Oh, here's one. So this one is an old one that I have that I love. And depending upon how you want to make the face, you know, whether you I like to make them kind of character and generally like old men. So first thing I'm going to do is poke 2 holes for where the eyes go. So let's go here and here. And they're nice wide holes. You could also take like the bottom of a 3/32 mandrel, poke a hole that way. And we're also going to pull a little bit of stringer out of this. So give me just a sec. I'm going to heat up some and then I'll pull it out and then let it cool. Some people work right off of the ends, and I do sometimes, but I think I want to have a little more than that. So I pull it like emergency stringer, where I heat the end of the mandrel, heat my glass, attach, and then let it cool quite a bit before I start pulling. Here we go. That's a good thickness. What's that, about 2 millimeters, somewhere around there? So we're going to warm this up, and we're going to let that stringer just melt down like that. And I want to add a nose also, so I go in between the eyes, and because it's kind of an old man, I'm going to give it a pretty good sized nose. Let's give it a couple of ears, and those go to the side of the eyes. And these are just kind of basic. So if I have it there, I need to do it right opposite of that. I can always nudge it over if it isn't quite right. That one's a little bit lower and bigger. We'll just add a little bit and we'll fix that too. And we want to make sure the top of the nose is connected and my stringer has cooled. So what I like to do before I go too far is add some eyebrows also. And I just go across the top of the eye like that and add just a small arc. Eyebrows add a lot of personality. And for the nose, to make it a little bigger, I'm going to add area for nostrils. Those might be a little bigger than I should have done, but oh well. So let's keep the cap warm. And if you have nostrils, you're going to need holes in them. So I poke a hole in each side. It's going to give them a bigger nose. And for the ears, I heat them up and I poke a little hole, and not all the way through, but I can adjust where I want them to move that way also. I just take the glass nice and warm and move it however I want. You can push in, pull out. So far he's got a face. And I think sometimes they look good with a good chin also. So let's keep them warm. A lot of times we get focused on the face and we forget to keep the cap warm and the upper part right there. So be sure you keep putting a little bit of heat on there. So I'm heating up the ivory, adding a little bit more so he has a bit of a face, and I'm just going to poke a little bit of a hole for his mouth. Now here's the thing with mouths. They're really hard to do, especially if you haven't made them a lot. So it's easier just to poke a gentle little hole for them. And I have this little piece of black here that I'm going to thin out and use for some eyeballs, although I like them without the eyeballs also. So let's heat up the parts that may not have been getting heat. You notice that for this top section here, I'm heating up on the back side where there aren't a lot of details. So that I can just run it a little bit on that side, but this side I can sink some heat into it, and then that way I'm not messing up the facial details. So I need to heat up the holes where the eyeball's going and hope that my hand's steady enough. Heat up the eyeball there, socket, and we pop that in there. That takes a little bit of practice. So if you want to make him cuter, you would add fatter cheeks right about here, but we're going to skip that. This gives him a pretty good face. Let's see, do we want a little bit of hair? No, why not? I'll give him a little bit of hair. It adds texture more than anything. My grandpa had kind of hair that did that. Okay, so there is a mushroom with a face. Hope you enjoy. Oh, we gotta get his chin a little more evened out. You could put a dimple in there and give him a Kirk Douglas chin. You can give him more hair. You can add a little bit of green at the bottom. But there is a mushroom face. Hope you enjoyed it. See you later. Bye. Oh, don't forget, subscribe, like, and you can find me on Facebook under Marcy Lamberson, or on Instagram, Marcy Lamberson also. Catch you later. Bye.